Welcome to the Fortified Life podcast, where we learn how to develop a dependency on Jesus in the marketplace. From the boardroom to the bathroom, God is with you. Here's our host, author, speaker, teacher, encourager, stewardship coach, and my husband, the man they call Mr. Fortified, Quentin Florence.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Jason Davis, a.k.a. Mr. Fortified. We're back for another episode of the Fortified Life podcast, where we are passionate about developing a dependency on Jesus in the marketplace. And we bring on all types of guests, CEOs, authors, speakers. But this episode, I'm really excited because we're going to switch it up a little bit. And a lot of folks in the business world are interested in from an investor standpoint. And we've got people in the kingdom that are involved in that part of industry and business. And before I introduce our guest, let me tell you a little bit more about him. Dr. Quentin Florence is a co-founder of Coplanar Capital, LLC, where he serves as the Chief Investment Officer. In this capacity, Dr. Florence plays a pivotal role in overseeing the management of the Black Men's Health Tech Fund, which strategically invests in cutting-edge bio and health companies dedicated to combating the CDC's published list of the top 10 killers of Black men. With an extensive background spanning over 2 decades in the biotechnology industry, Dr. Florence brings a wealth of experience to his current role. He has held influential positions where he made significant contributions to the advancement, quality assessment, and production of research products specifically focused on Alzheimer's disease. Dr. Florence's expertise spans various domains, including market research, product manufacturing, technology transfer, customer relations, research and development, and other administrative and scientific activities. Beyond his professional pursuits, Dr. Florence cherishes his enduring marriage to his beloved wife, Natalie, which has thrived for 18 years. Additionally, he is a devoted father to his spirited 6-year-old daughter, Abigail, who brings boundless joy and energy to his life. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the Fortified Life, Dr. Quentin Florence.
Hey, thank you, Jason. I was wondering who you were talking about in that.
I can, and in reading your, looking at your bio, Quentin, I know God has been very good to you. And that being said, a lot of people, they look at that, they hear that, Quentin, they go, oh my goodness, like, gosh, he does a lot. Kind of take us through your professional background, Quentin, because we know that Dr. Quentin Florence didn't just appear in 2023. So just kind of chronicle your professional journey for us.
Yeah, sure. So I actually went to the University of Georgia for my undergrad. So from about 1999 to 2003. And while I was there, one of my professors, in a God moment, I have several of those in my life, one of my professors identified that I was really talented at doing work in the lab. And work in the lab is what leads to, manufacturing foods and medicines. And so I actually took more of a focus on the medicine side. And while I was doing that, I was offered a chance to go to UGA for a doctorate degree. And so I actually got my degree in biochemistry and molecular biology. And I was focused on something called X-ray crystallography. I'm not going to bore your listeners with it. It's basically one of the first ways that you do drug discovery. You bind compounds to different proteins that are inside of your body, and you look at how those compounds affect those proteins. So think of a painkiller that you'll take. It binds to a receptor in your body, therefore numbing the pain. And so I did a lot of those initial studies, and that actually led me to a couple of jobs where I manufactured some drug therapeutics and some diagnostic tests. But while I was doing that, the Lord actually called me out of that career because I thought it was my dream, what I wanted to do, everything that I had been working for my entire life. And so about 7 years ago, really now, wow, that's crazy. About 7 years ago, God told me that he wanted me to quit my job and leave the laboratory. So my lovely wife, who you mentioned in my bio, confirmed it with me through prayer and through talking to some advisors, and I actually left that industry, and God took me on a journey of about 6 months where he had me to discover the investment management space. And in that space, I've now founded 2 companies. Coplanar Capital is my second company. We are a VC, so a venture capital company focused on investing in biotech. So things like I tell people, don't think of only medications. The Apple Watch is actually a very good tool used by doctors and all of us to keep our checking on our health and make sure that we're doing well. So I invest in companies that make all kind of products in that area.
Wow. Hey, Quentin, that's just so powerful. One recurring theme that never ceases to amaze me on the show is when guests just talk about these pivots that God takes them through. Quentin, if you can recall, what was it like transitioning from the lab into the investor space? Like was there any sense of like, man, I can't believe I'm here? Or did you just kind of grasp, you know what, this is what's next? I'm going to do my due diligence and learn. What was that transition like for you?
Yeah, no, so that's a great question. I love to sit here and tell you, God told me to do it. So I was 100% confident and I just ran with it. Right. No, it didn't work like that. I say there was a lot of fear because all of my training led me to be highly functioning in the lab. And I was going from a position where there was basically the CEO of the company, and then I was second in position. And the only reason why I was leaving that is because God told me to. And so as I was looking at the investment management space, I had no clue what I was doing. And so I kind of had to humble myself and go back into a learning mode and start sitting up under some people who are in the industry, who were experts. And I learned a lot of tough lessons. A lot of assumptions that I had were thrown out of the window as I just sat there and had to learn from people that have been doing this for, 30 plus years. But the good thing about being a scientist is I learned how to learn. So I knew how to make a hypothesis, test that hypothesis, and I actually began to apply that in the investment management space. So, and then the one thing, I'll point out to your listeners, when God calls you to something, he's prepared you for it. You just didn't know. It was another one of those moments where, similar to in college, where my professor said, "Hey, you're just really talented at working in the lab." It turned out that I was really talented at analyzing companies and identifying investment opportunities. I just had never done it, so I didn't know.
Wow. That's powerful right there. Quentin, you said a couple of things. You mentioned perhaps the keystone trait throughout Scripture, humility. And just talk about how important as a business owner, entrepreneur, even those in corporate, just how important is humility to just our day-to-day activity?
Yeah, no, for my job, so as the chief investment officer, my job with my firm is I identify the companies we want to invest in. And then I also have to pitch to our investors why these are the companies that we have to invest in. I have to remain humble throughout that whole process because I have to tell entrepreneurs what is good about their company and what is bad. And usually investors come in and I'm not going to say they, because I've been this way and God had to rebuke me. We can be very arrogant because we know we're bringing the money to the table and you need the resources in order to get to where you need to go. But kind of what God has shown me is the first thing I need to do when I walk into a company is remain humble and realize I don't know anything. All of my assumptions need to go out the window. And what it's done is actually allowed me to build a rapport with the boards of companies, with the CEOs of companies that give me a relationship to where if we do a deal or we don't do a deal, these people have actually still remained close to me and reached out to me. And I've actually benefited both financially and on a personal level just by going into the situation humble and knowing that I'm there to learn from them, not necessarily to tell them what to do. And then on the investor side, investors, they work with us because they are looking for a return on their money, right? But what I have to understand and remain humble with is I have to understand, how did they earn their money? How did the Lord bless them? And usually there's a story behind that. And so I have to connect with them and value their resources sometimes more than they value them themselves. And the only way I can do that is understand that all these resources come from God. I didn't do anything to create it. This investor didn't do anything to create it. So how does God want me to honor their resources while we're working with them? So for me in my profession, humility is number one. Me and my business partner, we always start with humility with whatever we're doing.
Wow. So good, Quentin. The power of relationship you touched on. And the second thing, you kind of got into this, getting into some practicalities, and that was essentially kind of where your lab work came into play, scientific method. And I know there's a really good book by Eric Ries, The Lean Startup, that many have written. But whether you're talking about a business plan or being in the lab, how critical is it to develop that habit of testing a hypothesis, Quentin? Because so many people, they grasp onto this idea, but this is my baby and it has to work this way. So what's the importance of testing a hypothesis in the business world?
Yeah, I mean, it's vital, and I want to say something to your listeners that are especially the entrepreneurs that are listening. Your business is not your baby. Your business is an idea God gave you, and you are now turning it into something that's generating revenue. So you have to trust that God's going to work through you to make it grow. But the only way to make your business grow is to let go of it. And this isn't a show about, a sermon, but all of us know when we release stuff and place it in God's hands, he does much better with it than we do. Right. Yes. So you have to start there. And I tell people, running a analytical method and being honest with yourself about your business is the only way that you're going to be successful. Right. I'm an investor. So when I come into your business, I have zero emotional attachment to your business. You have all the emotional attachment. We have certain criteria that we look for. We're analyzing the product. We're analyzing most of the companies we work with. They have patents. So we look at their patent portfolio. How is that portfolio going to last in the years to come? We look at your competition. Right? Because here's another thing. A lot of times people don't understand you have competition out there. If you're not aware of that competition, right? Part of that scientific method is to actually research the hypothesis that you've generated. And so you believe your product is the best product in the market. Why? How does it compare to what's out there? How are your competitors actually getting their product to market, and why do their customers like them more than they like you, right? These are analysis that you have to do as an entrepreneur, especially when you're just starting off. Because a lot of times we all come in with these rainbow dreams and then reality hits. And it's because a lot of times we haven't done, all of these analysis. And so people come to me as an investor and everybody has the greatest idea in the world. Everyone. I have not met a single entrepreneur who does not believe that they have the greatest idea in the world. And I think that's great because God placed that passion in you. But for me, I can't look at your business as the greatest idea in the world. I have to look at your business as, can this make money? And are you stewarding it properly? right? And I use the word steward intentionally, right? That's what we add to our analysis when we're looking at a company. Most people say manage. We say, are you stewarding it properly? Because are you actually doing everything that God wants you to do with that business? And it's easy to tell to the outside world. So if you're not analyzing it yourself over and over, then trust me, when I walk in, I can figure it out literally in probably less than an hour.
Mm. That's huge, Quentin, the importance of stewardship and holding the idea and the business loosely and giving it to God. We were going to get into this a little later, Quentin, but you kind of started mentioning a few things. You were starting to outline the elements of what you look for in venture capital. So someone was putting together a pitch deck, Quentin, and I know you kind of were touching on elements of this, but what really, you don't have to give away your secret sauce, but high level, if someone is coming to you pitching their idea, trying to get and secure funding, what are you looking for? What things kind of eliminate you? Like, you know what? You probably need, people have seen Shark Tank and some of the other shows out there. What are you looking for? And maybe if someone's not ready or they need additional work, how do you kind of explain that in that situation?
No, great question. Let me start with kind of what are we looking for? First thing I tell everyone, every investor is looking for something different. It is your job to find out what we're looking for. You read my bio. What am I looking for? I'm looking for companies that are addressing the top 10 killers of Black men. If you don't have that, then I don't have the time to work with you, right? Because God has given me a mission and I'm walking to carry that mission out. So the first thing I tell everyone is identify your target audience. If I have a restaurant, Dr. Quentin Florence is not the person to approach. There are other investors who are looking for restaurants, right? I'd say that's number one. Second thing is when you're preparing your information to communicate to everyone, make sure you have done a business plan. Notice I did not say you have to give me your business plan, but you have to do a business plan on your own for yourself so that you can answer all the questions that we would have, right? In a business plan, you go through, you do a market analysis. So you look at how does your product look in the market? What kind of impact can your product have in the market? You have to look at what is your vulnerability of your product, right? So that's where you look at, we call it a freedom to operate, right? Do you have a patent? Do you have a trademark? Do you have something that truly makes you unique that is a value proposition that you can hold as your company grows? What type of team do you need to build in order for this business or company to function? Most businesses start off, we call them solopreneur businesses, where it's one individual. And I've seen some really successful solopreneur businesses totally fail because something happens to that one individual that's running everything, right? So for me, we do not invest in businesses that are solopreneur businesses because I'm literally investing in one individual. So I tell every entrepreneur, show me how you're going to replicate yourself and then do it, because you need something to stand on its own without you, right? Then after you've done your market analysis, you've looked at how your product fits, you've identified how you build your team, then you have to give me what is your plan for the next few years in order to grow your business, right? And now I'm not gonna sugarcoat this. This is the hard part. Most of the time, you probably have about 30 seconds to 90 seconds to make me want to listen to you. So you're going to have to package that in a way that makes me pause to say, this is something I want to learn more about. Because most investors hear from 50 people every day who have the best idea in the world, right? And God has given us a responsibility. Our job as stewards, we have to sift through that and say, God, is this what you want us to focus on? And so we say no a lot, but it's your job to always be prepared so that when you come across the one that God wants to say yes to you, you'll be able to give him that information in a good fashion.
That's good right there, Doctor. That is good. And folks, I hope you're listening. I mean, he was really laying it out there for you. And Quentin, I know you have your certain industries. Let's use Pareto principle, 80-20 rule. No matter who you're talking to investor wise, would you think that advice pretty across the board would at least cover quite a bit of what people are looking for in a deal?
Oh, yeah, definitely. So in my business, I focus on biotech, but at the conference that Jason and I were at, myself and another speaker talked about, we do side hustles, right? There are things that the Lord has made me passionate about that I will advise on, I will invest in personally, me and my family, we will work with. So we've actually done, a restaurant, different types of businesses, because this is something that is passionate within my family, and the principles are the same. We look for the same thing, and sometimes it can be even more challenging, right? Especially, I go back to the restaurant business because my mother's in it, and she's been very successful. There's a new restaurant every week. So why are certain ones successful and then others fail miserably? And it's because the ones that are successful have a great business plan and they execute it. There's no secret sauce. They sit down, they go through, they look at, okay, if I open this restaurant in this area of town, the reason why my restaurant will work well here is because most of the people that consume Mediterranean food live within a 7-mile radius of this area.
Right.
Then of that food, here are the top 5 things they eat. Well, my restaurant makes those top 5 things. Right. And it stands out, and that is repeatable no matter what. If you have a good plan, you can execute it in any industry. So whether it's the restaurant industry, the gym industry, we've advised fitness coaches. You see new gyms and new trainers pop up over and over. What's the difference between the ones we see on Instagram and TikTok training all the celebrities versus those who can't make it? Most people will tell you, well, this one got a break. They met the right person. I will tell you that every day, God is just waiting on you to be ready so he can take you where he wants you to be. So all you have to do is stay prepared, and then your opportunity will come.
That is good right there. Quentin, you kind of talked about this a little bit, especially at the summit, but when you're in front of someone and they have a good idea, but it's like, well, it's not biotech. Can you talk about the community aspect amongst investors in VC, where you might make a phone call and say, hey, there's this individual, there's this company, and I think they're on to something, and I know it's outside of my expertise. Can you talk about if you've experienced that and how the community aspect works amongst investors?
Yeah, so I would tell you it is a very small, tight-knit community in the investor space. I know people that invest in real estate. I know people that invest in the movie industry, people that invest in music, different things. It's just once you get into the investment management space and you have a business and it's functioning, you attend the same conferences, you meet with the same people. A lot of times we're pitching the same family offices and high net worth individuals so that we all can get the resources to do our jobs. And so I can give you a quick example of something that just happened 2 days ago. I received a phone call from a gentleman I know who said, hey, I have a great opportunity to invest in and sponsor a concert series. So there's this famous artist, and they were looking for investors, to help rent out the venues, get all the equipment, pay for some of the acts. And then at the end, when all the events are sold out and the concerts happen, the investors split the money with the people that are promoting and putting on the event. And so for that, I made one phone call, an introduction, and I put them in front of a group of people that is all they do. So it wasn't what I did, but there was a group of people who had all the paperwork, connections, and could make that happen quickly. So you never know who you'll come across, right? I have this belief that not only as an investor, do you just mention it to them, but even as one, when I'm analyzing a company, even if it's not something that I am interested in, I always try and remain helpful. Because even entrepreneurs, they know other entrepreneurs. And the things I've learned is really successful entrepreneurs are well connected to other really successful entrepreneurs. And that gives me more of a chance to identify better opportunities. So I try and help those guys out as much as possible.
Very, very cool. Before we get ready to go, Doctor, you've kind of alluded to this throughout the conversation. Everyone has had turning points, faith turning points in their life. What was one of those for you? You talked about the transition earlier coming out of the lab, but what's maybe another one that was really impactful and really helped solidify you from a faith perspective?
Yeah. So this one for me, it's I have several in my life, but I'm not going to take up your time. I'm going to give you the most recent one that for me is just, you talked about my daughter at the end. She's 6 years old. So for 11 years of my marriage, doctors, experts told me and my wife we couldn't have kids for 11 years. And I knew God, right? I knew God was good. I knew God took care of us. He provided. But, there was always this ache in my heart, right? It was just like, man, I don't understand, God. I want to be a father. My wife wants to be a mother. The desires of our heart. And we had given up. Right? You know God, but then you're just like, well, maybe he isn't going to do this for me. I'm reading all the stuff that he does for everyone else, but maybe he isn't going to do this for me. And I'll never forget this day. I am sitting there and my wife tells me, I woke up this morning and the Lord told me to take a pregnancy test. And it's just like, what are you talking about? For 11 years, all we've heard is we can't have kids and there's not going to be any way. And so I had to go to work and do a bunch of stuff and, I had totally forgotten about it. And my wife was just like, hey, how could you forget about this? And, she hands me this card and she says, congratulations, you're going to be a father.
Wow.
And I don't get emotional, right, very often, but that brought me to tears. It's probably the last time I cried. Like, it brought me to tears. And what I learned in that moment is that God loves me. Right. I grew up in the church. I got baptized. I had a relationship with God and I knew that, he loved me kind of, but man, in that moment, he heard something that had hurt me to the core and he healed it. And so from that moment forward, it kind of to give you the order, it's like my daughter was born and then almost a year later, he called me to leave the lab. Right. He knew he had to show me that he loved me. So when he gives me such a crazy, challenging word that I can say, okay, I'm going to move out because I know you love me and you'll never forsake me. So for me, that's kind of my God moment that really moved me.
Very, very touching. And I appreciate your transparency because as we know, different couples go through different things as it relates to fertility, and so that's not lost on me. You sharing that, and now here she is, 6 years later, just a miracle from God. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, before we go, Quentin, we're kind of at the back portion of the year. You've talked about the transition out of the lab. You've shared your testimony. You've talked about the anatomy of a deal. What are you excited about as we close out 2023 and go into 2024? What are you most excited about going into the new year?
Yeah, I'm excited about opportunity. So at the beginning of this year, the Lord led me to Genesis 26, and your listeners can definitely check it out. But it's talking about a famine in the land. And as an investment guy, famine, we do not like to hear that word, right? Right. But during if you read through the chapter, it talks about how Isaac, he planted and he just reaped and reaped and reaped, and the Lord made him a very wealthy man. And so God has had me kind of camp there, and He really showed me that during a famine, if we lean into God, He will bless the work that we do. And so for us during this year, you read it in my bio, we launched our Black Men's Health Tech Fund. Where we're looking at some really exciting opportunities, like things to better monitor our glucose levels, things to monitor our kidney function. These are all things that as Black men, as we get older, genetically, we are predisposed to these things being issues for us. And as a scientist, I always struggled with it because I was able to make medications that help people, but I was not able to make medications that help people that look like me. And that was a real struggle. And I said, God, why not? And what God has shown me is that He's gifted others. He wanted me to get to this position so that I can meet those who He has gifted to make the things that will help people that look like me. And the great thing about, this fund and us going into the final part of this year where we've launched it, and then we're really going to start doing a ton of investing in November, December, and January and February, we're investing in these companies, and these products are going to be in the market in the coming years. And hopefully, our goal is that any person, no matter the race or gender, should be able to go to the doctor, and whatever they are dealing with, there should be something there to help them. And so right now, the top 10 killers of Black men are not really being addressed due to various reasons. It's not because people aren't trying, but there are just not products there, to help Black men with heart disease and high blood pressure and strokes and everything, just because the medications were not designed for them. But there are a lot of great companies right now who realize this is a problem, and they're making products that are specific for us. And the great thing about it, Jason, is not only are these products working well on Black men, turns out they work even better on everyone else. So we're really, really excited about this Black Men's Health Fund and just everything we have going on at Coplanar Capital.
Wow, that sounds like a win-win all the way around.
Yeah.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Quentin Florence, he has blessed us. And Quentin, where can people keep up with what you're doing, whether that's website, social media, because you said a lot of exciting things, and God is definitely in the health and biotech space for sure.
Definitely. Yeah. So the two best ways to reach me are going on our website, coplanarcapital.com. And once you go to coplanarcapital.com, we have a contact page. If you go there and you reach out, whether you're an entrepreneur, who has a business in our space, or if you're an investor looking to figure out, hey, can I participate here? If you go there, that information will get back over to me. And then the second way, if you want to reach me directly, the best way is LinkedIn. I tell everyone just find me on LinkedIn. I'm Quentin Florence on LinkedIn, and connect with me, reach out. If I can get to you, I will definitely connect. And if I'm the right person for you, I'll help you out. If not, there are a lot of people out there that are looking to invest and help entrepreneurs grow the vision that God has given them.
Well, folks, you heard it directly from him. You know how to reach out to him, and we will have all of this information from Dr. Quentin Florence in the show notes. So we'll have the website as well as his LinkedIn profile. So you can't say you didn't know, or you don't know how to reach out to him. He laid it out for us. Well, Dr. Quentin Florence, we are just so elated to have had you on this episode. You have given us wisdom. You've blessed us. You've inspired and encouraged and challenged us as well. So thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with us on the Fortified Life podcast.
I really enjoyed it. I appreciate you for having me, Jason. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, folks, we leave things. Don't compartmentalize your faith in the marketplace. And from the boardroom to the bathroom, God is with you. We'll see you next time on the Fortified Life podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Fortified Life podcast. You can catch us live on Wednesdays at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time and on demand. Check out fortifieddlifepodcast.com for more details. To learn how to live out your faith in the marketplace, grab a copy of Jason Davis's book, Fortified, Being Rooted in God's Plan for Work and Business, available on Amazon.